Alright, I took the rest of the tape off and they came out pretty decent. I know the rim looks a little scraped up, but they were kind of beat up when I got them. So the paint can't really fill in everything, but here's the rear tires. They came out pretty nice too. I'm playing with maybe getting a white pen and doing the highlighting on the letters. I'm not sure how well it's going to take because of the stuff that I put on there, the tire paint. I mean, it went on super wet and super thin. It was more of a stain. But taking the tape off, I'll tell you this, it does stick, because I had to cut some of the tape off close to the edge of the rim. But it's a big improvement over the originals. In fact, here's a original tire. That's basically what the color was. So if you compare it, I think the black's gonna look a lot nicer on here. So I'll end up mounting the tires after I decide whether or not I'm going to do the lettering, and we'll go from there. Well, I decided to do the lettering. I went to the store, bought a couple of Sharpie pens. This is a medium point, and I bought a fine point. I'll tell you, it's a lot of work. The pens actually lift some of the black that's on the tire and mixes with the white, so you got to keep putting coats, more and more coats on. They sort of look blue, actually, the lettering, but it is white. But it's just because of the mixture of the ink and the coating that I put on it, the tire black. So, like I said, I'm going to mount them and go back to working on the windshield. I laid a piece of paper across, it's actually wrapping paper for packages, across the front of the car to try to cut out a pattern for where the bends are going to be for the windshield when I get it, whether it be plexiglass or Lexan. I'm going to cut it out of a 1x8, I guess it is. And again, it's just for the curvature. So once I bend it, it should fit inside a metal track that I'm going to use all the way around the windshield, a chrome track. So I'm going to keep trimming off this paper here and then lay it on the 1x and cut out a pattern, and then this way I can go pick up the plexiglass and try to bend it without breaking it. And I cut out a template out of a 1x, so this way once I get the plexiglass I can start forming it. Now I got to get some height decisions made, and I cut some foam to try to lay it out to see how it's going to look. I got to cut it at an angle, make sure it sits correctly. So I'll make a template out of foam, and then hopefully when I bring it down to have them cut me a piece, it'll all the angles will be cut, and I won't have to cut. All I got to do is bend it. So it's going to be a trial and error until I find the right height and the right angle. Then I'll go down and get the plexiglass. I had some foam board laying around, so I figured to start making some patterns for the windshield. The biggest problem would be the angle that the windshield would sit and the curvature at the top. And then, of course, the proverbial, how tall do we make it? So I made two patterns, one at 6 inches, one at 7 inches. I'm trying to go with scale. So I came up, it looks like we're going to go with 7. I made a paper template. It looks pretty decent. Hopefully I'll be able to bend it to make it fit the car. That's what I got the wood cut, the wood pattern cut, so I can lean the plastic up against it and either heat it, or honestly I have no idea how it's going to bend. So I'll probably have to keep the pattern because hopefully I don't screw up the first one. So it's a learning experience. Bending plexiglass or acrylic is a little tough. You just really got to be careful with it. So I'm gonna go get a piece of plastic and give it a shot, see what happens. I made a pattern for the windshield, made out of cardboard, so I could take it down to the local Ace Hardware store, and they laid it out on a piece of plexiglass and they cut it out for me. They did a heck of a job. I mean, it really came out nice. I stuck it on this form that I had made. It started to bend it cold because I'm scared to death of trying to heat it. And that wasn't doing anything. It sat on a mold for about 4 days or 3 days, and every time I went to undo the mold, it sprung back on me. So I finally broke down and says, all right, let me get the heat gun out and heat it and start bending it. And just try to be careful. Apparently it starts melting at 320 degrees. So I got a temperature gun that I keep shooting it now. I've bent it most of the way already. I released it and it does spring back just a little bit. But it seems like it's going to work out. I mean, as long as I don't screw it up when I get the corners a little bit tighter. But it seems like it's going to work. I ordered the trim to go around it. That should be here in a couple days. So I'll mount the trim on there, mount it on the car, and then make sure everything's nice and straight, and then take it off and paint the car. Well, the chrome for the windshield came the very next day. I was surprised. The only problem I ran into was if you read the packaging instructions, how they're going to ship it, it says it comes in a 6x6 container, 6 inches by 6 inches, and so you would assume that it would be flexible, but no, it came in as an 8-foot length, solid as a rock. So it was going to be a pain in the butt to bend. So what I did was I got the heat gun out and started bending it. I got a couple small kinks right at the corners, but I can live with it. I was going to wrap it around the top of the windshield all the way around, use the same stuff, but as I started to do it, it was kinking really bad, no matter how much heat I put on it. So I'm going to either leave it alone or I'll pick up some flexible molding to put on top. But it doesn't look bad by itself, you know, without anything on it. So, but I guess the next thing I'm going to do is start working on the tail lights, because I can't seem to get a hold of them for tail light lenses. So that's the next project. For headlights, I used a piece of plastic that my neighbor threw out. It's a light cover, and it worked out pretty good. I think I've already showed part of that, how the procedure, how I made them. Now, if you look at the ends, it has a different type of design. It goes long ways instead of little dots. Well, let me give it a shot and cut some out and see what happens. And they worked out pretty nice. I got them cut. I sanded them to where I made them fit the actual housing. Now the original one I had, this is a couple pieces of ones that I had that basically were broken, so I tried to use it as a mold, but that didn't work out. So if you notice, you'll see it's red all the way across with a couple silver dots where the screws go through and actually hold it to the car. But if you look at original 59 Fury, the center section in here is actually clear. So what I may do is I'm going to try to divide it into threes. I have some washers. I'm going to try to either use these or get a bigger washer. Put the center white and the outside red, and we'll see how it turns out. Well, it came time to do something with the tail light lenses that I had cut out from the lens light cover from my neighbor. I had some paint laying around the house, some red, some maroon. Tried to get something close enough to where it would match what a taillight lens on a 59 would look like. This is closer to what the taillight lenses on this thing look like. I bought some silver paint to go around the outside, and I tried it on a couple pieces of scrap plastic, and it didn't seem to work out too well. Number one, the colors weren't close enough to what I wanted, and it wasn't translucent enough. I mean, you could put plenty of paint on there and then you wouldn't be able to see through it. So we happened to be at a dollar store, and we saw this file folder, file organizer, and the plastic looked closer to what I wanted. So I cut out a couple pieces and to see how it would work out, and the shape wasn't bad, and which was nice without blinding you here. I'm going to show you that they're translucent. So the only thing left to do is, before I put them behind the plastic lenses, to put some chrome on them. So I started different trial and errors with different pieces of plastic just to see what would look best. Thin, fat, skinny, wide. And this is what I came up with. It came out pretty decent. I was initially going to leave the center clear, like a backup lens or a backup light would be on the original car itself. But I decided now against it, because that would mean that the backup lights are always on, and I'm not a fan of that. The washers that I have on here are originally washers that come off of sheet metal screws that go into metal roofing that had rubber gasket behind it. Now, I thought they were pretty much the perfect size. I just took the rubber gasket off the back of it, so this way they would sit flatter. And the screws themselves are just temporary right now, just to hold the lens in place. What I'm going to probably do is paint the heads of the screws red, because the original car, the original 59, had red dots in the middle of the lenses, because the lenses were held on from behind the light, not through the light. So we'll paint the car and see what it looks like and throw these suckers on there. Pulled the body off again and flipped it over. I'm going to do some reinforcement on the back side of the body. On the front, you'll see some cracks. I don't know if they're stress cracks or whatever. But I figured, well, I might as well do something to reinforce it somewhat before I do any kind of body work on the front of it. So this way I can get this done. And it's warm today, so fiberglass work's supposed to work pretty good when it's warm. But I don't know, never done it before, so this is going to be a learning experience. Alright, the resin is dry. I put one coat on first, laid the fabric down, and then put 2 more coats on top, front and back. I only have a couple little bubbles. I had one here that I cut out, and I have another one up front here. But it should be okay. What I'm going to do is I have a quarter of a can left. I used 3/4 of a can. I'm going to mix it up and put it on there again. Put another coat, rough it up a little bit, and might as well use it all up. I don't think I'll be using the fiberglass resin for anything else. I don't have any more fiberglass left. So looks pretty decent. I'm kind of pleased with my first attempt at fiberglassing. I'm glad it's on the back side though and not the top side, because I'm definitely not a professional.